The most important chinuch advice ever for parents and for teachers. The Chavetz Chaim said that the outcome of children is 100% siyata d'shmaya, 100% in God's hands. It has nothing to do with us. So why do we have to do anything? And the answer is hishtadlus. We have to try. So let's talk about hishtadlus with money. We'll apply it to parenting, and I think we could really resolve a lot of problems. When it comes to money, we know two guys can go to work. One guy can work half the amount and make triple, right? Because what he's going to get is decreed by Hashem. But if you're supposed to get money and you just don't work, you're not going to get it. If you do your hishtadlus, you'll get what God wanted. If you do half of your hishtadlus, you'll get, I guess, half of what Hashem wanted. So we have to do hishtadlus, but it's not tied into the result. Some people work so hard and they just lose money and they get a bad investment and they lose more than somebody else who's working less hard. So we have a chiyuv of hishtadlus to try to make money. But we all know and believe with firm emunah that Hashem decides how much everybody's going to make. Some people make a lot of money and then they have a terrible loss. There was no insurance and this happened and that happened. Hashem is in charge of everything, but we have to do hishtadlus. Is that clear? Can I hear it aloud?
Yes.
Okay. So now, Hashem gives us a kid, okay, with each kid. The Chavetz Chaim says, 100% of the way this kid turns out is up to Hashem. But we have a chiyuv of hishtadlus. We have to try to raise them properly. What is trying to raise a kid properly? So let's go back to hishtadlus for parnasa. Does stealing count as hishtadlus?
No.
Tough crowd. You're like, no? Now you tell me, right? Why doesn't stealing count as hishtadlus? Because it's against the
halacha.
Thank you. So anything that's against the halacha does not count as hishtadlus. Hashem doesn't say, I'll give you $200,000, but you got to steal $100,000 because the hishtadlus cannot be against halacha. Right? Right. Parenting cannot go against halacha. You're now not allowed to get angry. If you're getting angry, that's not part of hishtadlus for your child. Ta-da! Most simple parenting thing in the world. You say, okay, can't help that because I can't deal with that. We have to go in the Yud Gimel Midas of Hashem. To be a Racham, a Chanan, a Erchapayim. All of the Yud Gimel Midas, learn Talmud Devara. We do it every week. It's short, it's small. That is the way we're supposed to deal with stuff. When kids misbehave, it's a challenge to us. This is already a chiddush. Because every time we have a nisayon, we look at it as Hashem is giving me a challenge, and I have to overcome. With parenting, a lot of people don't even think it's a challenge. What does that have to do with me? The kid is challenged. I'm not challenged. No. The way that your kid is going to become is up to Hashem. We have to do hishtadlus according to halacha, which is to be kind and compassionate. Mahu rachum af ata have rachum. We're commanded to be not like when Hashem is angry, v'chara af Hashem. Everybody wants to be that God. But the Medrash says no. Halachta b'drachav means rachum chanan erchapayim, sweet, kind, compassionate, merciful, non-judgmental, dan lekav schus, right? And never ever angry, which is kavod avodah zarah. So now let's say I'm a computer program, and I'm programmed to only use the Torah and not to go against the Torah. And now this full computer program looks like dad, acts like dad, right? And the kid does something wrong. And the only thing to do is to go against the Torah. It won't do it. It'll be like, can't help you. Because you can't go against the Torah. Now, we're humans, I understand. So we get confused, I get it. But we don't even realize that I just got angry, which is my nisayon, and I got angry, I blame the kid. I blame the whatever. But it's a nisayon. So in every nisayon, even if we fall, we say, I'm sorry to Hashem. We realize, what does Hashem want? And if we could think, right? We say, what does Hashem want from me? if we're smart, right? If we have the space to do that in every other challenge. What is the and hopefully we try to do Ratzon Hashem. There are people who go speak to their Rebbe, Ratzon Hashem. But all of a sudden here, when a kid does something wrong or major wrong, people don't think of that running to their Rebbe. What does Hashem want from me? What does Hashem want from me? I can't get angry. I can't fight with the kid. I'm a Rachom and a Chanun. I'm a Erech HaPayim. I'm a Noisei Avain. I'm all of these beautiful midas of Hashem. What does God want from me? So this is, I think, the best parenting advice in the entire world. Never, ever think that your hishtadlus to make your child or your Talmud or a kid, really struggling, a teenager, or anybody, to use tools that are not just Gimel Midas HaRachman. We have a tool belt. Okay? We have now I'm going to be a Rachum, now I'm going to be a Chapayim. The Nisayan is that the Goyish cup, and a lot of the therapy world says, they're going to take advantage of you. You got to put your foot, you can't act like God. You can't go in with Hashem's, really? Hashem knows when he acts like that to us, right? So the angels come and they say, don't be nice to him. He apologized 32 times and he still does it again. He's going to take advantage of you. Go get angry. That's part of the Goyish mentality. Now, let's think about it. The people who get angry with their kids because you're a manipulator and he's going to take advantage of you and they have this rough relationship with their kids, look 20 years later, compare them to these kids who also misbehave, but they have a kind-hearted father and mother, sweet people, smart, they understand. Kids go through stuff. Think about leaders that we have that were so soft-spoken and they didn't talk Lashon Hara and they didn't get angry and they didn't explode and they didn't put people down. They really used the Yud Gimel Midas HaRachamim, right? Do we really think that the rough and tough parents end up with kids who are better? Do we really think that those kids are kinder? No. Every time you fight, you go against the Yud Gimel Midas HaRachamim with a kid at any age, you're teaching them something wrong. You're embedding in them a response that is not correct. You're actually, instead of teaching them by example how I can rise above the challenge, you're teaching them to not rise above the challenge, that anger is okay, that punishment is okay, yelling, screaming, whatever. So the Sfarim teach us, and it's in Raising Royalty all over the place, that what you're actually doing to a 6-year-old, let's say, that you're bullying the kid. It doesn't mean you can't punish. You have to learn how to punish also without going out of the Yud Gimel Midas. But when you're bullying a 6-year-old using might, power, and control, go to your room, shut the door, I'm not giving you all this kind of stuff, which is not part of Torah parenting. You're teaching him that strong people can treat weak people that way. Because you're not dealing with him like he's as strong as you, where I got to reason with you and say, listen, what you did wasn't right. He's a little pipsqueak. But his feelings are being formed. So they're forming under the idea that if you're stronger, you can just take something away from someone smaller. You can push them in a corner. You can close the door on them. And then Nesiv Shalom brings it out. He says, and then they do it to the kids in their class who are weaker than them, or younger siblings, or kids on the block, or anybody that's weaker than them. Because you're teaching them, they don't understand, you're right, and in this case, I'm not right. It doesn't matter that you're right. Show them that I'm right, but I'm going to treat you like a mensch. It also begins from the misunderstanding that people think kids don't have feelings. Kids are not entitled to have feelings, and kids are not supposed to be treated like a person. Chazon Ish is very clear, and many, 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 many others. Children are people too. All of the laws of V'ahavta l'reacha k'maicha apply to children. Did you know that? I never knew that. The laws of V'ahavta l'reacha k'maicha apply to children and your child as well. I did not know that. And none of this stops you from being a good parent. On the contrary, they're going to learn from you what it means to be a good adult, which is what you're trying to get to. You're not trying to get them to behave when they're 5. You're trying to teach them through everything they do in their life to be a good adult. And the image that they have, if it's mommy and daddy screaming, going out of control and punishing and just not behaving well, is totally different than if they remember, and there are so many people now that are 30, 40, 50, 60, and they say to me, I was such a crazy kid. I drove my parents crazy. And some of them say, and my parents were like, just so royal about it. They were so Toradic about it, calm and cool. Even if you have to do stuff, it was done in a negotiating way. It was done in a beautiful way. Says Rabbi Yitzchak Zilberstein in Aleinu L'Shabeach, he says, it seems to me that every time you go head-to-head with a kid, you're actually injecting in this little kid the feeling, the ability, the knowledge of how to fight. And it's so true. Because now they're like, but now they're going to learn how to do it. As they get older, they know how to fight and push down, and you're creating a rebel. He says, you're teaching them by going how to go head to head. Somebody else, the kid does the same thing, and the father goes over to him and he says, oh, what are we going to do about this? And he talks to him nicely, or the mother talks to him nicely, and they get remembered forever. They get remembered forever, forever, forever. So we have to realize, first of all, that whenever we have a nisayon from our children, it's a nisayon from Hashem. Through our children, through a neighbor, through a spouse. It doesn't matter how it's through. We have to look at it as a challenge. What's the challenge? What does God want from me? We had a parent that was in Israel, and they went to a big gadol in Eretz Yisrael, and he said to them, because they lost their kid, the kid left the house. It's like a hospital losing a patient. Our kids are home. They're welcome home. They're home. They can be home. We want them home. This kid was so unwanted that he left. And the parents said, we didn't throw him out. That's the new thing. Nobody's throwing out their kids. They're just making them feel so uncomfortable that they'd rather leave because they can't zustel, or in English, conform, right? Or in Hasidish, zishtel. They can't conform, so that, listen, if you want to walk around in your underwear, you can't live in this house. This house has rules. So they lost the patient from being home. And they went to the Das Torah, who was a Talmud of Reb Elia Lopian, Zatzal, very choshev tzaddik in Eretz Yisrael. And he told them, come here, because they said, Avi said we should bring our kid home. Avi said we should get our kid an iPhone, right, which is terrible, okay, because we broke the iPhone, and that's one of the reasons that he left, whatever. And he held his hands and he said, Hashem wants you to get your kid an iPhone. And then he said, Hashem. And then he said, Avi said that we should get a big TV in the room. It's in Eretz Yisrael, in a very frum neighborhood. He said, yeah, that's going to make your kids stay home. And he said, come here. And he took his hands. The guy told me, both hands. He didn't just say, well, you don't have a choice. What are you going to do? He said, Hashem wants you to buy your kid a television. So Ratzon Hashem comes in many flavors, and some of them are quite strange. But if you have a Das Torah, and you're in a situation like we were in, whenever I speak to Das Torah, especially Reb Shmuel, my Rosh Hashiva, my Das Torah for 25 years already, Zol Zayin Gezun, to Shmuel ben Ita Eto. I always ask at the end, how should the parents feel? Because we feel terrible, right? Like, we're doing this, but we don't want to do this. How should parents feel? Right? And I asked them, Gershon Edelstein also Zatzal. I asked them what's on the video. What should be the machshava of the parents? I said, the machshava of the parents when you're doing these things, he was talking about buying a girl natznius clothing, which is very uncomfortable and yucky and difficult. He was talking about all the stuff over there. A boy brings a girl home, not to be merachek him, all this stuff. I said, what should be the machshava of the parents? And he said, the kids should do tshuva. We're doing this to be mekar of our children, so they should become, healthy and do tshuva and lead healthy Yiddish lives. So I got a call today, and a guy calls me up. He says that he knows somebody. The kid's out of the house for over 3 years. So he went over to him and he started telling him, maybe you should be mekar of the kid. He says, who says that? He says, everybody says that. The Askanim say that. He says, Askanim is not Das Torah. Where does it say that you have to be mekar of your kid? Where does it say? So here's someone who's a very chashuv person, a very big Talmud Chacham, cares about Hashem, and doesn't know the Aleph Beis. Doesn't know of what Hashem wants from him. Doesn't know the Aleph Beis. I said, first of all, it's so interesting. Number one, where's his Das Torah that says to be merachik your child? How come that doesn't need Das Torah? To be mekar my child and to be nice to him and to accept him, who's the Das Torah? But to be mean and to have a kid who's 3 years on the street. And this guy told me, quote, he's dying for his father's acceptance. He's roaming around. And his father won't give him, right? What we know is true, but he doesn't have that. Which Das Torah told him, no, don't be nice to your kid. That's not Das Torah. So I told him, I said, he's a Litvish guy, right? He's a Litvak. Chazon Ish. The Chazon Ish said exactly what to do. So he said, okay, great. He got back to me. He says, I told it to him. He was blown away. He said, it can't be. He opened up a Maisa Ish. He found it that the Chazon Ish said exactly what parents should do. Yinasu l'mashcham ba'avaisais ahava. Pull him in with ropes of love. V'loy l'tchaisam chalila. God forbid, don't reject the kid. He was like, I didn't know that. So for 3 years, he's going against Das Torah, without Das Torah, but didn't want to do the right thing because where's the Das Torah? And then the story with the car with the Chazon Ish. I sent it to him. The Chazon Ish said, buy the kid a car that he's going to drive on Shabbos. Dafka b'derech zu tiskadel hashpa'asay love. Because specifically through that, your influence will raise. So if you have a question, we ask Das Torah, we have our Das Torah. But we raise influence. Which kid is going to be better? A kid that is under the influence of normal with relationship being provided, everything's provided and supplied, and we're with you and we understand you, and if you need it, and we're sad that this is not what they need. But this is their reality. So I'm supplying, I'm giving you, look at the results. Calm, part of the house, and then naturally, they just want to be like us, like happens every day. Just today, father told me, he's crying. He said that his daughter, she was very pikuach nefesh and very natznius and very, very messed up and tattoos and one of our rough kids, difficult kids. And they bomb her, the father, the mother, hugs and gifts and love. Someone in the family came over and was schmoozing with her and said, you know what? I think you're ready to get married. She goes, oh, maybe. She goes, you know what? I know a guy for you. He's a great guy. And he was not from, but now he's Shomer Shabbos. And you know what she said? And he's calling me, he's weeping. She said, I'm not ready for that now, but I hope that I will be able to get there. He said, what? This kid's eating treif. This kid's eating on Yom Kippur. This kid was this kid was suicidal, and the whole package, and the drugs, and the boy in her room, right? He goes, my daughter said, I'm not there yet. I want to be there. That's where I hope to get one day. Inside her mind, she turned around, which is what you're all doing, Be'ezus Hashem, turning from against to pro. What did they do? Love, gifts, hugs, through very difficult stuff. Yeah, not fun for a Chassidish couple, not young, to have a dog in their community. Not fun. Going to walk the dog, not fun in their community. They don't live where you live. They live in a very difficult place that they didn't invent dogs there yet. But if you ever go to one of these Chassidish places and you see a nice, from Chassidish couple or, walking a dog, you could say, like, regards from Avi, We know that it saves their life. It saved her life, no question. Calms them down. So they did so many things that were so difficult for them under their Das Torah, but they did Ratzon Hashem. So let's remember, at the end of the day, raising kids, and in our crisis center also, it's up to Hashem. How much of it? 100%. But we have a chiyuv of ishtadlus. The chiyuv of ishtadlus is only according to Ratzon Hashem, Das Torah, to be a good Jew that goes with the Yud Gimel Midas HaRachamim. It does not include, like stealing money, it does not include anger, it does not include put-downs, it doesn't include hurting anybody, it doesn't include any of that stuff. It's not part of our ishtadlus. In fact, every time we do something like that, it's the opposite of ishtadlus. And it also shows that we're panicking because we don't trust Hashem. Trust Hashem, our kids are going to be great. He'll give them a refuah shalema. We have emunah. We have emunah in Hashem. He runs the world. We have emunah in our kids, that they are good. And we have emunah in what we're doing, which is Ratzon Hashem. And we have bitachon. That's that. Now, we have a little bit of ishtadlus to do. Let's not overdo it. Just like with money, people say, tzaddikim say, don't over hishtadlus, right? Hashem doesn't want us to never learn. Hashem doesn't want us to miss all the minions. Hashem also doesn't want us to yell and scream and to look the other way and be disgusted and not be able to hug our kids. And if you see something is getting in the way, throw it out, because anything that's blocking NKN, looking your kids in the face and hugging them and becoming the most trusted person to them that they have, that's our job. Anything that blocks that, it's not hishtadlus. It's not part of what Hashem expects, needs, and wants from us. You could start today. You can make parenting great again. If you did not treat your kids this way as of now, You can make, but it has to be a very big moment where you pull your kids in individually, collectively, it's up to you. And you say, I am so sorry. You could try defending yourself. It doesn't really work. I was brought up that way. I never got a hug. I got yelled at. It's true. The kids doesn't help. I am so sorry. I messed up. I wish I could turn back the clock. And you really, really apologize. And you say, by the way, from now on, I'm going to be the best parent in the world. And so many of our kids write things to mom and daddy, their Mother's Day, Father's Day, birthdays. I have the best parents in the world. And being a best parent in the world doesn't make them spoiled. It's another mistake. We can't go through every mistake. It's just like, it's either you get it or you don't. So it doesn't make them spoiled. It makes them appreciate life, and it makes them feel good deep inside. We're dealing with an emotional crisis in our dar, right? I'm not saying there's no physical illness. I'm not saying there's no financial stress, but everything boils down to emotionally healthy children. There's a reason why pretty much for every Jewish person, we have a Jewish therapist. It's like everybody basically, when you're born, it's like, here's a team. Everybody needs therapy. Why is everybody hurting? Why is, not therapists for advice, that would be great, but hurting. People are hurting too much. Our kids are hurting too much. Good kids, anxiety, and all kinds of stuff. So you can make a real moment, take a kid out to an expensive restaurant, whatever that is for you, and get flowers if it's a girl, or balloons if it's a whatever, and you could be like, you're going to remember this day for the rest of your life. This day. Who was it that just told me that their kid told them? Was it you? That since you started TP, your house is different? Yeah? Oh, so somebody. Right? Baruch Hashem. But there was a kid that just told her, it was one of the messages I got today. She said, since you started going, the whole house is different. That's the idea, right? So they should remember it for the rest of their life, that this is a moment. I'm not going back there. And there was a parent that came up with a good thing. The parent said, every time that I go back to my old ways, I want you to tell me, and I'm going to put $20 in Rameh Balanes and Stucca. There was another parent that said, every time I do it, every time I get angry or whatever, I'm going to give it to you. They're going to be rich. You're going to be poor. They're going to be rich. Right? Every time I yell at you, or every time I go back to my thing, and you know what it does? It means that as soon as something happens and you're rough, they're going to be like, and it's going to become funny. And it's going to be like, I almost lost $20, and you're going to grab hold of yourself, and you're going to find that for everything that kids do wrong, there's a good way to take care of it, and there's a bad way to take care of it. And you know what? Every parent knows the good way to take care of it. And you could do it. How do I know? Because that's what you do in front of company. Doesn't matter what your kid does. If there's company there, we know a nice way to deal with it. When there's no company there, but when there's company, all of a sudden, remember what we spoke about? Well, because there's some stranger there, there's always a nice way to do it if you remain calm. Okay, Hashem should help all of Klal Yisrael have nachas from their kids.